Welcome, brothers, to my first video. This is my top 10 movies of the past year. I figured this would be a good, easy spot to start at to kick off the channel. So let's go ahead and get into the honorable mentions. First up, Lamb, Licorice Pizza, Red Rocket, Come On, Come On, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Green Knight, Malignant, The Power of the Dog, Shang-Chi, and The French Dispatch. At number 10, we've got A Quiet Place Part 2. I really thought this was it was a really, really good sequel to a really, really good movie already, and I didn't think they would be able to pull it off, and John Krasinski did somehow. I'm not sure how he did, but the acting is great, the directing is great, it's just as intense as the first one. The biggest issue with it is it's not as tight as the first one is. There's more things that really don't make sense if you think about them. Overall, though, it was a very pleasant surprise. I never thought it would be as good as it is, and somehow John Krasinski pulled it off. So, and at number 8, we've got The Suicide Squad. And going into this, nobody thought it would be as good as it really was, because the first Suicide Squad from 2016 was dog shit. That's the reality of it. It was a bad movie, and so people already had a hatred toward these characters. Even though some of them are different, some of them are new, nobody really thought it would be good, but James Gunn really just took it and made it his own, and made it one of the best properties in DC in recent years. I know there's some people who don't like this movie, and to be honest, I'm not really sure why, because it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just fun. It's just a really fun time, and it's funny, it's got a lot of heart. The story's really intriguing. I'm not really sure what there is not to like about it, to be honest, but personally, I thought it was fantastic. And it also led to the Peacemaker series, which is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's on HBO Max. And at number 8, we've got Last Night in Soho, which is Edgar Wright's new film. And I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright. He made Baby Driver. I actually have a poster Baby Driver in my room. I think it's incredible. And he also made the Shaun of the Dead movies, if you've seen those. But he did something different with this movie. It's not like any of his other movies at all. It's his first attempt at kind of serious horror, because he did horror with Shaun of the Dead, but it was kind of a parody. But in this, he attacked serious horror. And to be honest, that's kind of one of the weaker elements of the movie. You can tell that he's not too experienced with it, but the cinematography is beautiful, and the story is really unique and original and intriguing. The soundtrack for this movie is also incredible, and it's just one of the best movies of the year, and I would recommend that everybody go see it. And next up, we got Nightmare Alley at number 7. This is Guillermo del Toro's new movie, and I'm also a big fan of Guillermo del Toro, and this movie is just beautiful. The cinematography in this movie is off the charts. If it doesn't get nominated, I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Oscars. They don't get anything right at this point, but I also really like the themes in this movie, and it's got one of the best endings of the year. And at number 6, we've got No Time to Die, which is Daniel Craig's final James Bond appearance. It has some of the best James Bond action sequences since Casino Royale. It's very well directed. It's very well paced as well. Daniel Craig's on his A game as normal, but the main issue with the movie for me was the villain, Rami Malek's villain specifically. I thought that his motivations weren't very clear and were kind of convoluted just to propel the plot. Visually, though, I believe it's the best James Bond movie I've ever seen. It's a beautiful movie, and it really stands out to me as one of my favorite Daniel Craig Bond movies. And at number 5, we've got Tick, Tick, Boom. And this is Andrew Garfield's biopic on Jonathan Larson, who, if you don't know, he wrote and directed the play Rent, which I'm not familiar with. I've never watched it or heard any of the songs before I had seen this movie. I really just went into it because of Andrew Garfield. I'm a big fan of his. And he really just knocked it out of the park with his performance. I'm sure he's going to get nominated for Best Actor. The movie will probably get nominated for Best Picture as well. It's incredibly paced, which is surprising because Lin-Manuel Miranda directed this, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was his directorial debut. So the amount of skill that he displayed in his first movie was kind of mind-blowing to me. The songs are also just really catchy. Andrew Garfield sings his ass off, and he cements himself once again as one of the best actors working today. This movie was just one of my favorites of the year. And at number 4, we've got The Tragedy of Macbeth. And this one's tricky because visually I think it's one of the greatest films ever made. But since it's Shakespeare, the text is in Old English, and it's not really translated well to modern day English. So the characters kind of feel at arm's length, and sometimes you're not really sure what's going on. And at number 3, we've got West Side Story. And this movie really caught me off guard. I'm not huge into musicals, but since Steven Spielberg was doing it, I wanted to check it out, and it really lands on all cylinders. It's one of the best musicals in recent years, and Steven Spielberg still got it. And at number 2, I mean, everybody knew it was going to be on here. It was the biggest movie of the year. You saw the trailers 19 million times. And there are films on this list that are lower than this, that are technically better from a technical aspect and from a craftsmanship filmmaking aspect. But this it gives you everything that you want as a fan. And I don't think that really comes around too often. I think that studios are too busy trying to make money that they forget that if you just give fans what they want, then the movie will make money. People will go see it. And I think this movie really delivered on that. And to be honest, going into it, I had some reservations about it because I knew it would be fun, and I knew that Toby and Andrew were going to show up. But I thought that it would be kind of lazy and would be bailed out by fan service, but it wasn't. It's extremely well made, and it's a real movie. If you take Toby and Andrew out, it's still a good movie, and it would still be one of the better Spider-Man movies because of the impact that it has, because of the ending. And Toby and Andrew showing up at the end is just a bonus. It's fan service, but it's not relying on the fan service. It's its own good movie on its own, and then it adds the fan service at the end as a little cherry on top. So movies like this just don't come around too often, so that's why I had to put it at number 2 on the list. And at number 1, we've got Dune. And if you know me, you knew this was going to be here. I thought this movie was fucking amazing. I saw it 3 times in theaters. I bought the 4K Steelbook the second it came out. I pre-ordered it. Denis Villeneuve's one of my favorite working directors today. He's made 2 of my favorite movies of all time, in Prisoners and Blade Runner 2049, and the guy doesn't miss. Every single thing that he does is gold. And Dune, for a long time, has been known as a book that's impossible to translate to film because of its large scale and the amount of characters and the amount of planets, and everything that is involved with Dune is very, very large, and there's a lot of lore that goes into it. And Denis Villeneuve's probably the only guy who could have pulled it off. And he just did such a great job building this world and helping people understand it if they didn't read the books. He makes everything very accessible. And I've heard a lot of people say that it's boring and that the characters are boring and that nothing happens. And I disagree. I think that it packs a ton into its 2.5-hour runtime. It's a masterpiece on every aspect, from its story to its visual effects, sound design, set design, acting, cinematography, stunt work. Every single thing is perfect, in my opinion, and it doesn't really have a flaw. I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made, and I think it's also setting up perfectly Part 2, which will also probably be one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made, which is why it's number 1 on my list. So that'll wrap up my top 10 of the year. My next video is going to be on the Batman. I've got a lot I want to get off my chest before that comes out, so be on the lookout for that.